Hello, this video is the beginning of Unit 6 on absolute value and comparing and ordering integers. We, at the end of this video, want to be able to use integers to describe situations, determine absolute value of a number or expression, compare and order integers, and graph integers on a number line. Before we talk about integers, let's talk about some ways that we would use them in our lives. So how do we differentiate between what we have and do not have for money? So if we have a certain amount of money, we have a positive amount of money. If we owe someone money, then we would have a negative amount of money. How do we describe our location when scuba diving or mountain climbing? Scuba diving, we are below sea level. So we would talk about that using a negative number. And mountain climbing, we are way above sea level. So then we would use a positive number for that. How do you know who is ahead in the sport of golf? So for those of you that don't golf, there's a par that you, like a number or a score that you are supposed to get on each hole, which is the par. And if you get above that, then that would be a positive score. And if you get below that, that would be a negative score. And then what do all these examples have in common in terms of math and numbers? So they're all using integers. So find this in your packet, otherwise write the word integers down. Integers are the set of all whole numbers and their opposites and 0. Positive numbers then would be the positive numbers that we've worked with, since we've learned about numbers. So an example of a positive number could be 4, and then a negative number would be, we would say -4, and we would use a negative sign in front of it. We wouldn't have to use a positive sign in front of 4, like a plus sign in front of 4. We just know that that's positive and that's negative. And if we look at the number line and we find 0, positive numbers are the integers to the right of 0. Those are greater than 0. And then negative integers are the numbers less than 0, which are to the left of 0. Integers are always whole numbers, whether they are positive or negative. So 3 and 5/10 would not be an integer. -4 and 1/4 would not be an integer. It has to be a whole number, whether it's positive, negative, or 0. And when we say opposite, we mean 3 and -3, 10 and -10, -20 and 20, and so forth. Write an integer for each situation. An average temperature of 5 degrees below normal. Below means under or like under the average. So then we would say -5 degrees, and that would tell us that means 5 degrees below normal. Susie is going to deposit $50 into her bank account. That means she's putting $50 in, so that would be a positive, so we would just write it as $50. Sharon made a withdrawal of $43 from her bank account. Withdrawal means that you take out money, so that means regarding her bank account, she would have -$43 from the amount that she had. And then Josiah's score after 9 holes of golf was 6 under par. So we would write that as a -6, or we would say 6 under. When we're looking at a number line, we want to make sure that we understand that numbers to the right of 0 are going to be our positive integers, and numbers to the left of 0 are going to be our negative integers. So when we're graphing, like if we're graphing this set of integers, 4, -6, 0, we can always start at 0. 4, we know that 4 on a number line, we know that we just count to the right, up, going positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can see that right there anyways. And then -6. So we start at 0, and we're going to count going backwards in backwards order, or it's going to be backwards on the number line. So -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. So -6 would be right there, and then 0 obviously would be right on 0. If we were going to graph -2, 8, 7, I know that negative 2 is going to be to the left of 0 at negative 2. 8 obviously is going to be to the right of 0 all the way up here, and then negative 7 would be 1 smaller than negative 6, and we would put that in right there. So negative integers to the left of 0, positive integers to the right of 0. Another important word that goes along with integers is the word absolute value. So please make sure you find this or write this down. Absolute value is the distance between the number and 0 on a number line. So write that down as your definition, the distance between a number and 0. Or basically, we can write it how far a number is away from 0. So then let's look at our number line here. So if we look at negative 5 right here, and we're counting how far away it is from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is marked, it's 5 units away. But if we look at positive 5, we also know that it's 5 units away, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So absolute value is always positive. So this is something that you want to write down and circle. The absolute value of a number is always positive because it's talking about the distance it is away from 0. It can't really be a negative distance away. Even if it's a negative number, it's still a certain amount of units away from 0. So this is how we would write absolute value. We would use the straight lines like this. So I'm going to rewrite it. It's not parentheses. Absolute value is 2 straight lines with the number in between. I usually like to make the straight lines a little bit bigger than the number. And then, so that we would say the absolute value of negative 4 is, and then I know that negative 4 is 4 units away from 0, so it would be 4. Okay, but if we had the absolute value of 4, 4 is still 4 units away from 0, so it would also be 4. So it's always the positive number of the number. If it's positive, it stays positive. If it's negative, it turns positive. The absolute value of negative 5 minus the absolute value of 2. So I know that the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. The absolute value of 2 is 2. And then I do 5 minus 2, and we get 3. Let's do some more. You could pause the video and try these on your own and then come back and check them. The absolute value of 8 is 8. Remember, it's the same number, but it stays positive. 2 plus the absolute value of negative 3 would be 2 plus 3, because the absolute value of negative 3 is 3, and then that would be 5. And then the absolute value of negative 6 minus 5 would be 6 minus 5, and we get 1. And then we want to talk about comparing and ordering integers just a little bit. So we talked about if a negative number is to the left of 0, then it's going to be less than 0, which means all negative numbers are less than the positive numbers. But if we're comparing negative numbers, so let's say we're comparing negative 4 and negative 2, we can see that negative 4 is further away from 0. So that means negative 4 is less than negative 2. Even though we would say 2 is less than 4, but if it's negative, then it flips around and we would say negative 4 is less than negative 2. And make sure that you write the less than and greater than symbols correctly. So let's compare each set of integers by replacing it with less than, greater than, or equal. So 11 and negative 11. So right away we know, and if we kind of have an imaginary number line, so we have 0 here, I know that negative 11 is going to be over here, and I know that 11 is going to be over here, so right away I know that 11 is greater than negative 11. I also know that a positive number instantly is greater than a negative number. Negative 3 and negative 19. So I know that negative 3 is going to be about here. Negative 19 is going to be about here, because remember we're counting backwards from 0. So negative 3 is going to be greater than negative 19. Absolute value of negative 4 and 4. Well, I know that the absolute value of negative 4 is 4. So those would be equal to each other. And then I know that the absolute value of negative 3 is 3. So then I know that 3 would be greater than 1. And then lastly, we're going to put some of these integers in order on the number line from least to greatest. So let's just look at a couple of these sets of integers. So let's look at this one. We have 0, the absolute value of negative 2, negative 4, and 3. I'm going to put these all on the number line. 0. And then the absolute value of negative 2, remember, is just 2. And then negative 4 is over here, and 3 is over here. It's easy when you put it on the number line because now putting it in order, I just know that I'm going to go from left to right. So in order then would be negative 4, 0, the absolute value of negative 2, which I'm going to rewrite in the original form that it was given to me, and then 3. Let's do another color. Actually, we'll erase the red marks here, and we'll do the second set. So negative 7, negative 5, 1, absolute value of 4, and negative 3. So negative 7 is going to be here. Negative 5, 1 is all the way over here. Absolute value of 4 is just going to be 4, because remember it's always positive, and then negative 3. So then I can rewrite it going left to right, so starting here and going all the way to there. So negative 7, negative 5, negative 3, 1, and then the absolute value of 4. So when you're ordering integers, you can always just draw a number line. You don't even have to have every single number on it. You could just place it where it would be compared to the rest of them and then order it that way. That's all I have for you, so make sure you have your notes with you tomorrow in class. Have a great day.